All right, what's good, everyone? It's Andrew, Chris, and Raymond back at it again this week. For tonight, we're going to be talking about gaming news, including Palworld's lawsuit, AI in gaming, and layoffs and contract negotiations within the industry as a whole. But before that, we have some happy news to announce. We finally have a channel name. We're officially Ninja to Viaduct, and someday we may get into why we chose that name. But for now, let's just hop into the news. So first off, Palworld's developer is being sued by Nintendo. Chris or Raymond, you guys want to kick it off?
For me, I think to sum it up quickly, I definitely think Palworld is in a going to be in a hard time. I mean, you have Nintendo going, this huge company going after Palworld, and for against versus a small studio. I mean, as much as Palworld created something pretty, pretty unique, although maybe unique is not the right word, but pretty interesting, with definitely a player base that finds what they've built with Palworld pretty interesting. Um, it's I can't say that this is going to be looking good for Palworld. I mean, one, even if Palworld was being able to put up a case that they didn't infringe on any patents, whatever patents that Nintendo is claiming that they're infringing on, you know it's going to be an expensive legal battle, I imagine. Even if this is being done within the courts of Japan, that one of the corporate tactics a business can do is they can just try to bleed their opponents dry, right? Especially if it's a smaller so-called opponent, smaller opponent. So, I mean, Power World probably isn't going to come out of this in a very good way, in my personal opinion. Mainly because even if they do come out in the right with the whole patent infringement thing, it's just going to be a very, very financially resource intensive endeavor just to kind of go through that legal battle against Nintendo, which it has a ton of money. And I'm pretty sure, even though Palworld came out a while and Nintendo didn't do anything since then, I mean, they did publish that announcement mentioning that they are aware of this game and they're looking into it, stuff like that, and nothing has happened for months until now. They likely were just spending the time trying to create a case that they felt that they could do or follow to go against Palworld. So I mean, yeah, I mean for Palworld, I definitely do want them as like an underdog to come out of this good, especially because they are making something that there are people that want to play that find it interesting, and I'm always there in the support of an indie game studio trying to do something that's interesting, even though if it may be pretty derivative from what Nintendo is claiming that they're infringing on. But I want to support. I want to hope that Power World makes it through. But yeah, it's definitely gonna be hard. So for them.
That's true. Like, even if they win, I mean, they're already gonna have to commit resources to that, fighting that lawsuit. So, I mean, it's such a bad precedence for, I guess, us gamers. Like, okay, like the most famous patent was like the Nemesis system. You guys remember from Shadows of War?
Yeah.
Like, imagine if other games could use that system. How many good games we could have had. So, yeah, and like Japan, they're always weird with their, like copyright, fair use. I mean, I wish they were more open-minded. I don't think Palworld is like a direct competitor to Pokemon, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, if they win, which, I mean, they might, so, I don't know, it's just a bad example, and I think people like us would care, but in general, with your average Nintendo fanboy, and like your average consumer, I don't think anyone even, not too many people know Palworld outside of like hardcore gamers. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's like a non-news for some people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, in their eyes, it's just new games, other games will always just continue to be released, right? And they'll never really know the difference. But for us, I mean, depending on what exactly the patent is, which, the going rumor right now is that it has to do with the catching mechanic, being that it's like spherical and you kind of have to throw, which is very similar to the Arceus like mechanic. But I don't know, just the fact that it is a patent and a lawsuit on a mechanic itself. It just seems so disappointing whenever that type of stuff happens. Like copyright for like artwork and design, that makes sense to me. But like for a mechanic, like how many games out there would we really have if companies and developers were constantly doing this?
I mean, yeah, for sure. It's and the funny thing is in for anything that's considered art, like in general art. I remember taking an art class at university, undergraduate, and one of the biggest lessons I took from that semester was, art is derivative, and to me, a making games in itself is a form of an art, and it's gonna be it everything from the past up to now has been like derivative, right? It's iterative. Everything builds upon what came up before, and then the next game builds upon what came before, and so forth. So I mean, it is. I see this. I see this in two ways. One is if you think of it like a purely like corporate business thing, that it is of course in Nintendo's right to try to go after Palworld and just do this lawsuit and claim that there's some sort of a patent infringement, whatever they claim to be. Even then, where it's not exactly clear, right, what that patent infringement is. But yeah, I mean, it's in their right to do it. But another way I look at it is, well, kind of like what Raymond was saying is, it kind of sucks for us gamers, even if there are a relatively like smaller group of gamers, players that play Palworld. It's still a bit, it's still crappy for us because one, you have this big entity, Nintendo, trying to, shut down or bring down Palworld just because of for whatever they claim to see that it's maybe going to damage their company, damage the Pokemon image, branding. But you could argue that because of that, they are, they end up, holding down, what could be right possibilities. And if this goes through and Palworld does go down, that just sucks for us because yeah, I mean, artistically, we're bringing down a game that is. I mean, I don't play Palworld, but I've seen it and I've read into it, and the premise is uniquely interesting. I mean, it is ingenuous to imagine having a very Pokemon-esque looking game filled with mechanics that involve, eating and shooting, and that's, you can argue maybe that's a bit unappealing for some, but you could still say that it's a bit of a unique game idea that, yeah, I mean, definitely people are interested in playing. There are people interested in playing, but for Nintendo then to, try to bring that down, I mean, that just sets up a bit of a bad precedent for anyone trying to build a game going forward. Because then, if you have like say Palworld, they're trying to build you have a small company trying to build a game, and now they have to think about, okay, instead of what's an interesting concept, what's an interesting game mechanic, or what's an interesting combination of art with game mechanics, they also have to think about, okay, well, if let's build this game, but also how can we make sure that we're not going to get ourselves sued, right? And like, how close is this idea to an existing game? How close is our art to an existing existing design for another game out there. Now you have game studios, wondering, are we going to get in trouble by doing this? That when it would be better for these independent studios to just freely, build something that is, one that could make them successful, two could bring some real entertainment and joy to an audience out there, however big or small. And then just pushing the whole game industry forward, right? Because even these bigger companies, Sony, Nintendo, whatever you want to say, they all start from somewhere, and you could argue that they fortunately had the fortune to kind of start from the beginnings of gaming, whereas studios now, are in a fairly developed industry. So maybe it's unfair, but you know, for any smaller studio, anyone who wants to make a game, I think it's just better if to give these small studios the artistic freedom to do whatever they need to make. Because I mean, at the end of the day, is Nintendo really gonna get hurt by what Palworld is doing? I argue probably not. Financially, probably not. Pokemon is something that's not going to go away, and even if Palworld gets even a bigger audience than it is today, like a year from now, 2 years from now, if this lawsuit doesn't bring them down, I really don't think Pokemon is going to be really affected, or Nintendo's company is going to be really affected by what Palworld is doing, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and remember Pokemon. They copied Dragon's Quest.
That's true. Yeah.
So
I did see a like a Reddit post that was like comparing all the different creatures, and some of it looked almost 1-to-1.
Yeah, I mean everybody copies. So I don't know, but yeah, it wouldn't affect Pokemon. This is adult Pokemon for people like us.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. So I mean, yes, as a company, sure, Nintendo can, and it is understandable from a business perspective why they would do this. But at the same time, really, I mean, what's Palworld really gonna do? Like, how much money are they gonna lose because of Palworld? I mean, yeah, just what's the point, really? Other than to spend the effort to make some indie studio, just stop and go defunct. I mean, but then again, it's Nintendo, right? I mean, they even give a hard time for the esports scene, So even though the esports scene is helping Nintendo, especially like their Smash Bros scene, they still go after them, and they still make it a hard time for that scene just to do things, just because of how, for whatever reason, their fist of an ideal.
Yeah, I remember in like the mid 2010s or so, like they were even squashing any like streaming or like let's plays. And I'm not sure when exactly that stopped or when they started kind of being like okay with that, but I do remember that was always, or like that was a big issue. And this was like during the time when it was like PewDiePie and stuff was like really big. In any case, I am curious to see though what the fallout is going to be outside of the Palworld developers. Like, because when this originally launched, it was on PC and Xbox, but it was also tied to like Game Pass, I think, right? For Xbox. And so is Microsoft going to get caught in that fire as well? Like by them sort of giving their stamp of approval and allowing this to be offered through their programming, their stores.
Yeah,
I mean Nintendo's big, but it ain't that big.
But I mean, if if they end up winning this case, does that now set a precedent for that, so that then they can also cite this? Because this lawsuit also came a day after they won another lawsuit for like a few million, right? Granted, that one was for copyright, I believe, but still.
Well, we'll see how it goes. I mean, it's still the beginning. I mean, and not only that, it's going to be done in Japan's court. So, I mean, we'll see how it goes. But I mean, I hope for Palworld's continued existence, and I hope Nintendo doesn't. As a person that enjoys games, I want Palworld to continue even if I don't play it. I mean, I don't see any reason why Nintendo should, bring down a small indie company. So I hope it pans out. But like I said in the beginning, I really don't think it's gonna look good for these guys. I mean, one, indie studio. Two, Nintendo has a lot of money. If they really, really want to, maybe they don't even expect to win, but they have the money to keep on going. Whereas Palworld Studio can't push that far, right? I mean, they're just gonna bleed money, and that's a legit, corporate tactic. If you bleed your enemies dry, if you can, especially if you're in a position where you have the resources, where your enemy that you bring to court does not have the same financial resources. So, yeah, I hope for the best, but I don't expect it to be a good outcome for them.
I mean, I don't know. This may be a little too hopeful, but I don't know. I feel like that this lawsuit is going to leave a very poor taste in a lot of gamers' mouths. I mean, granted, still small compared to like just gamers as a whole, but I don't know, maybe we can unite and speak with our dollar. Just because I mean, like I personally am not super into a lot of Nintendo games overall, just because I do feel a lot of it is very stale, for lack of a better term. And so I typically don't buy a lot of first party games from them. But like seeing something like Palworld's, like iterating on a familiar world, that definitely appeals to me, and I feel like that appeals to a lot of other people out there, that maybe, just maybe, it might hurt some of their sales.
Yeah, that's true. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see how it turns out. And I'm curious. I mean, it's curious to see how customers' dollars would affect it. I mean, I would like to see the customers, dictating, dictating what a punishment could be for Nintendo, but I kind of feel for what Raymond is saying earlier, in that, the Nintendo. I wouldn't say Nintendo is a studio known for hardcore games. I mean, yeah, you have Zelda, like you have like Smash Bros and so forth, that are definitely cater to like a certain like hardcore or dedicated fan base. But I think in general, Nintendo definitely appeals to a more general customer base. That's in there for the entertainment, for the well-known characters, Mario, Yoshi, that kind of stuff. Mario Party, Mario Kart, Donkey Kong, all that good stuff. So, maybe if Palworld goes out, I'm not too sure if the majority of Nintendo's existing customers are going to punish Nintendo for that. Although, I don't know, who knows? Maybe it will. Maybe not.
All right. Well, with that said, some other news that happened this week. EA had some type of press conference, but they had mentioned AI being at the very core of their business moving forward. So I feel like that is an interesting stance. Definitely, sort of a hot topic just within tech overall, with like conversations about AI. I do think it was an interesting choice to very publicly proclaim that it's going to be a key part of their business moving forward, especially when it comes to the arts. There's a lot of pushback when it comes to conversations about AI.
Yeah. So my thoughts about EA using AI, and so for off the bat, for me, using AI is not a bad thing in itself. I mean, it's a tool. I think it's just a tool, and also the word AI at this point right now, AI is more of a marketing term instead of an actual legit, artificial intelligence, which we may be imagining, an artificial intelligence to be, right? Something that's a bit more aware and be able to do stuff on its own independently. I think right now AI, especially within the context of what EA announced, AI, it really is just a tool. And we looked at that demonstration that they had where they were building a kind of a tech test demo. Um, it really was just really no different than using an existing tool to build games, right? Just added features, right? So when you looked at their presentation, you could see that they were building very quickly a game world. It was a game world where the platform where there were a bunch of platforms that were breakable, and they were able to quickly, doing just like word text prompts, be able to describe what they want to see, right? So hey, let's make this bigger, make this smaller, add a certain texture, make it more quote unquote epic, and then the AI tool makes it more epic, and then you could define, or to quickly make already pre-made characters, and then from there you can edit the characters that they have. But when you see it, you take notice that it really is, again, just a tool. It's a tool that helps make things faster, but isn't really doing anything. Isn't really intelligent in the sense that it's doing stuff on its own. Rather, it's just taking. So AI today is based off of data, right? Existing data. So when you watch demo, that tech demo, you could see that the resources they were asking the AI to use to help quickly build the tech demo was based on existing character models. Like for example, you could see characters from Apex in there, and then they merge it together to create like a unique kind of character design to run around that map they were making. So, and I think if there's any concern about AI being a bad thing for game development, I would say as a tool in itself, no. I think I would argue that I agree with the idea that AI as a tool can make things more efficient, like more efficient. You can build games faster, build games of higher quality faster, maybe even cheaper. So with a faster timeline, um, and you could do game making a bit more or less, that's less more grueling for developers. I agree with that idea. So I have no issues with AI being used the way in what they presented. What I am more concerned about is whoever is the leader, if leadership takes that whole AI tool concept or AI concept and tries to really hamper creativity, and um, and instead it just focuses on being more iterative, right? I think that's where the problem and what I would be concerned about, because at the end of the day, game studios by itself, especially if you're in a game studio, I would expect that you know you're trying to create a game based on wild ideas for design, gameplay, art, sound, music, etc. And you want to just make it faster, right? If you could make it faster, why not, right? That's we're using tools today, software today, just to do that, right? To do things faster and more efficiently and more cleaner way. Um, so I'm not worried about studios by themselves using AI tools to make games. In fact, I would think it's a good idea, and I would argue that any game developer would probably agree with what I'm saying, in that yeah, it's going to help us build games faster. what is more scarier is when you have a game studio leadership that maybe not so close to the whole game development and try to impose a mindset or mantra to just, hey, let's build a game faster that we know customers will want, all right, and play. Like maybe like a annual Call of Duty game, right? And we just build it faster, build it cheaper, but it almost for the most part it's still the same from prior years, right? But we know people are gonna play it because it's a Call of Duty game, right? So, and if you have these leadership pushing that in a very, very hard way that brings game developers, game studios in the wrong direction, then that's when things can get good, really bad, and then we can get mediocre games, right? So, I, that's my take on it. I mean, it's really cool stuff. That what I saw, I would like to use it myself. I mean, it'd be interesting, but yeah, AI is definitely more a tool where it can go the wrong way if you have the wrong people dictating how it's to be used.
Yeah, I think no one has a problem with AI. But the actual company that's talking about this, EA, out of all people, I mean, they got the most predatory monetizations in their games. Um, I mean, look at their track record. Like, what's a good EA game besides maybe Apex, right? They reskin FIFA, they reskin Madden every year. I mean, and let's say okay, they make a game faster, it's efficient. Is that cost gonna come to us gamers, the consumers? I don't think so. So they probably want to make things faster, more efficient, and still charge the same price or even more. And yeah, I just don't see like EA having that conference. It's just I don't like I don't I don't trust a company like that because if anything, they're going to use AI to see. Okay, let's see what other monetization strategies we can use in the future for our games. I don't think any of it is gonna benefit gamers. I think because even if they make games faster, if it's still crap, like most of their games right now, I don't, I don't see why they would need AI anyway. Because if their ideas are trash, I don't know what AI could do for them.
I was thinking about that too. Like specifically their sports lineup. I mean, they those are annual releases, and just throughout the years, I recall seeing comparisons of just like the like the background audience, and it's just like a copy paste of the previous year's model. And then one year, it even looked like they didn't change like background banners, so it still said the previous year's like you know something something 2K 2021, but it was like a 22 model, right? And having that practice, and still today, it's not really encouraging. On top of all the layoffs happening within the industry as well, like I think this is just another tactic to further like raise their earnings while cutting costs and cutting people as well. And on top of that, in terms of more predatory practices, what arguably one of their biggest games to date is Apex, right? And where they're really making money off of that is all through the microtransactions and the cosmetics and stuff. And I can see them just using AI just for this. And now you have this added or like another cost cutting with artists, right? And well, like we're not a big fan of the microtransactions, at least to that level. At least someone is being paid for their work, but now like that might not even happen because they're just going to rely on AI to develop these things.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's all it all comes down to the corporation, and just like y'all are pointing out, especially what Raymond was saying, that because it's EA, and yeah, EA is doesn't have the greatest track record for I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, they're there to make money, and EA is definitely in a position at a point where that is their main goal. And like I mentioned earlier, you look at the level of game studio, it's probably a great tool. And AI tools are working it better to help make gamers or make games faster, especially for maybe newer studios, maybe like a small team of like 5 or 6 or 7 that are just trying to get started. They'll be able to get their ideas out there faster, um, with less time, less cost. Great for them, but up to the corporate level for a company like EA, yeah, I really do not expect, will not expect, probably foolish to expect EA to not try to utilize AI to maximize profits. I mean, I think they're a corporation, right? That's their end goal, right? To maximize, financial value for their shareholders, which, by nature, can't blame them. I mean, that's what a corporation is there for, right? But yeah, I can definitely see games coming out from EA to become more iterative unless there is a system or a set of people or a set of leadership that is able to really push back against any type of direction that is taking them towards just pure monetization, maximizing profits, and causing things to be mediocre. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. We'll see what the future goes. But yeah, I mean, great for small studios, great for studios by themselves, independent studios. Um, Great for any publisher that has the value of you know supporting game studios to make games that are unique and trying to help them make it real and come to fruition. But otherwise, any big publisher, whether it's Microsoft, EA, Ubisoft, etc. Yeah, I don't. I think like Raymond was worried about. I think it's really realistic to expect that whatever they say, however they tout it, you know, it is there to make money, more money, and not necessarily pass on savings to us. Because why would they, right? I mean, if we're as customers already comfortable with paying $60, $70, some games are getting like more than that, $100 plus for these like special versions, like deluxe versions, gold versions, etc. They already know there's a market of people that are willing to pay that, and we're pretty much at the level of $60 per game today already, right? So yeah, I really don't think, like Raymond said, they're gonna likely pass off those savings to us gamers. But never know. But wouldn't expect it.
On that note, in terms of conversations about companies and corporations and good, the bad, we also had some additional news. Technically, it happened the week prior, but we had a massive walkout from Annapurna and their publishing studio. It seems like for the most part, their entire team of about 25 people resigned due to contract negotiations with what is her name? Is it Mary? Mary Ellison? No, Megan Ellison. Which, sidebar, didn't even realize this is the same family Ellison that owns Lanai.
Yeah. They have land here in Hawaii, that's for sure. But yeah, same guys like Larry Ellison, even Larry Ellison of Oracle, and even yeah, you have here Megan Ellison and their son. I forgot the son's name, but he's also in the middle of, I think, taking over Paramount, I believe. So yeah, big family of money, that's for sure. But Yeah, Annapurna, and I mean that statement. I know the news about that is a bit limited as to like what exactly happened, but I know IGN published an article detailing a little bit about like what they were able to get insight from, people they were able to communicate with anonymously. But reading the article, the whole idea I got was you had a bunch of people, developers, people in leadership that were closer to the development side, just not jiving with executive business leadership for a variety of reasons. And I think a lot of it comes down to just decision, just poor leadership based on the article from IGN, primarily because you had Ellison just one not initially being there in the beginning of the studio as Annapurna Interactive was building their games, and then suddenly she comes back or starts exerting uh, executive decision and types of games and the direction that they were going, but still being a bit hands off and just not making transparent decisions with the team. And but you had the developers and the leadership that were close to developers, still pumping out good stuff. But then suddenly you have this person who just was, you know, almost non-existent or very hands off. Suddenly to come in and not be in the eyes of developers. Um, an example of good leadership. And I think that's the core of it all. The fact that everyone left just points out to you that, yeah, you had a bunch of developers who obviously very talented based on the work that they're pushing out, just not wanting to be with this person as their management, leadership management. And I think that speaks volumes as to what's going to happen to Annapurna in the future. I mean, whether I mean it's cool, it's respectful that those developers all quit in unison, even though they probably didn't have any kind of backup plan, at least at that time. um, it's it it just tells you that Annapurna is gonna have a hard time going forward because one, these people that are coming into Annapurna that suddenly making these new decisions, um, they're not the ones that were building the games that Annapurna was making up until now, and yeah, they claim to be able to backfill people, new developers, so forth to take the place of these developers that left. But it's not gonna be that easy. I mean, you have to one onboard, you have to train, you have to have some kind of direction, go through documentation, go through notes, and all that good stuff, just to see where things turned off, and that's gonna take time. And from what I read, Annapurna has quite a bit of commitments that they have on the books that they need to meet, um, especially that one with Remedy, right? The guys who made Alan Wake. I mean, building was it a show, I believe, with for Alan Wake. So they got a lot of projects going on, but I mean, it's from my experience, if you have some kind of mass exodus like this, and remaining leadership thinks that they can right the ship by backfilling. I mean, just backfilling is not enough. Backfilling, just hiring someone is one thing, but it's after the hiring. You have to do all these things like onboarding, training, getting the plan together, looking at the notes, looking at what the vision is, and then making changes. It's going to take time. And I imagine any partnerships that Annapurna had for any contracted projects that they have are definitely be very worried. I imagine, even if they promise to backfill within, like, let's say hypothetically they backfill all open positions within 1 week, right? It'd be foolish for any partner company to still be not worried about what's going to happen.
It was particularly telling that an entire team would decide to walk out, given what we've been seeing over the past couple of years within the industry of just like constant layoffs all around. I mean, granted, most of those layoffs were happening on the development side, but just like overall with games as a whole, the industry has just been bleeding people, and so for an entire team to just say, yeah, we'll take our chances. I mean, I don't. We'll see what also happens here. But I also saw in the article that it seemed like Annapurna Interactive was also under investigation for like workplace stuff as well.
Yeah, it's not gonna be. I wouldn't. I'm not surprised, and I definitely wouldn't be surprised they find more weird stuff happening. Um, and I mean, right now, something I wouldn't be surprised if there's more news about Annapurna coming out because now you have a lot of attention on them right now. I mean, for a variety of reasons. Obviously, all those developers leaving. That's one, and two, you have people worrying about their existing projects, and there's gonna be more scrutiny by different people, not necessarily by government, right, like that, but um, they have a lot of attention, and not a good way, not in a good way too. So.
It's the start of the fall of the AAA.
No, I think I think that's a fair statement. Um, yeah, it's
Next is Ubisoft.
Oh yeah, I'm sure their time is coming.
yeah. I mean, games are just I mean, yeah, definitely expensive to make and take a long time. Yeah, no, when was the last good Ubisoft game that I played? Can't really remember myself personally.
Ubisoft? Siege?
Yeah.
I
The
think so.
Old Siege?
Mm,
What are they, year 25 now or something?
something like that. Yeah.
But I think so though. Like that's a game that has just like had a lot of polish when it first came out. For the most part, generally well liked, still well liked and played, right? I think since then they like all other releases have kind of gone under some level of scrutiny.
Yeah, their games are like, compare them to like a family restaurant. It's like it's good enough. You'll go there when you have no other options. You know, they're like a straight 6 or 7 out of 10. They make that kind of game.
Yeah, Chris and I were actually just talking about it, and like I had this realization as I was like playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's like, oh, I kind of want something a little bit more modern. Oh, never finished that Ghost Recon game. Let me jump back into that, and just suddenly realizing that everything was basically the same, just in a modern setting, but a huge world, a lot of just busy work of having to go hunt somebody down or clear a village, and then random shenanigans in the world happening. And after that, it's just like, I don't think I can play these games anymore.
Yeah, I think definitely, it's it follows a trend where, or not really a trend, but you can tell that, like Raymond said earlier, it's they're trying to make games to make money, not to push things forward, right? And if Andrew said based on experience, he noticed that there is a pattern of the next game from Ubisoft being very, very similar to the last one, right? Or just a little bit iterative. That just tells you that for these major game company publishers, their goal first is to make money with the lowest amount of cost, and if that means just making average games like a mid 6, 7 maybe, and knowing that there are people that are going to play a game that's considered mid, they're gonna do it. They're gonna get whatever studio that is willing to build it, or that they can command to build it. in to be just good enough, just serviceable enough to make money. So, you know, it's gonna be it's gonna be interesting how the future moves forward. But I think at this point, I definitely have a lot of support for small studios, independent studios, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to most likely push these new ideas. Not necessarily mainstream ideas, that will have like great reach as like our well-known franchises that we know, Call of Duty, Battlefield, specific, big franchise, RPGs and so forth. But these independent studios are the ones that are creating stuff that's unique, whether for a very artistic way or story way or a unique gameplay way. You know, yeah, they're the ones that are doing things without being hindered or being held back by the whole idea of purely uh, monetizing, purely for profit. I mean, of course, everything is a business. Anyone is trying to do something. If they're building a product, building a game, they want to make money, right? That's fair. That's natural, of course. There's nothing to be ashamed about that. We all want to make money for sure. But at the very least, that's I would like I would say I would think most indie developers are trying to build a game to make money, yes, but build something that they're also proud about, and also to flesh out an idea that they think that is very unique, or a story that's great, or a gameplay that's very, very new or a unique take on. So yeah, to me, I think with AI coming in, and making a game even, you know, making a game cheaper, faster, more accessible to people, to studios. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing even more independent games coming out, big size, medium size, small size, um, and you see, like Raymond said, the downfall of AAA games, or these big companies that are trying to build AAA games, because they just either cost too much or take too long, um, or they're just too mediocre.
Well, with that said, we are closing in on the hour. But before we wrap up, I did actually want to jump back to last week's topic about the PlayStation 5 Pro announcement. And I want to see if, Raymond, do you have any thoughts on it? Or, like, what are some of your takeaways from it, good or bad?
Um, Mostly all bad. And with the anniversary edition, we're celebrating, was it 30 years now?
Yeah.
With a discless, overpriced, non-backwards compatible system. What a great way to celebrate 30 years. And then there was a funny post, like, it was called like the Concord tax. So I think, did you guys see that? So the PS5 Pro was supposed to be $599. with the failure of Concord, they added $199 or something. But yeah, I mean, it looks nice, but yeah, I don't know. I wish they made something like the PS3 again. With the backwards compatible, because I don't know, like every year people complain about that, so there is a market. Like if they release that at, how much was it again? The PS $699, $799.
So,
PS5 Pro, $700.
Six,
Yeah.
yeah. With backwards compatible, yeah, I would probably buy that. But could even add a disc system to it. I don't know. That's my
Yeah,
take.
it's definitely
Like,
yeah, it's definitely not something like we were talking about it before. It's definitely not something that's a value proposition at all. I mean, yeah, if you wanted a disk drive, if you wanted to add the vertical stand, you have to pay additional $110 total. So you're hitting more than $800 just to kind of get that whole package, so to speak. But it definitely, I agree with Raymond saying it's definitely not a product that provides value. Maybe for someone who doesn't have a PlayStation 5, or maybe someone who doesn't want to spend money on a brand new gaming PC with a dedicated GPU, 4000 series from Nvidia or whatever. Okay, then yeah, maybe this PS5 Pro is for them, but even then, it's definitely not a product that has a lot of value for its price. I mean, you might at this point with the PS5 base being priced at it like what you can I've seen it be like under $500 now with a bundle. That's definitely a much more value. You play a game. You can play the same games that PS5 Pro can, maybe not at 4K 60, but you can play 4K 30, or you are able to play in performance mode, which you'll get a lower resolution. You'll still be able to play the game, but at a lower resolution at 60 frames per second. I mean, I played God of War Ragnarok and in performance mode, and I enjoyed the game very much. I didn't really have too much of a problem with the visuals. So, yeah, it, I want to buy it before the announcement. I said I was one of those people that would be willing to buy it, just because I like games. I like playing based games with nice visuals, just to emphasize the story. So being to play at like 4K at a high refresh rate is very appealing. By $700, yeah. I mean, at that point, I would argue you could spend money. If you had the money, it'd be more value to spend a bit more money to get a gaming PC with, like, say, a 4060, 4070 NVIDIA GPU. And that way you can play your games at a higher performance, all right? And you also get a practical computer that you can use for things that are not in gaming, right? And that would probably, and with sales, right, you could probably get a gaming PC, a decent, good gaming PC, at a good price. Even if, yeah, you would pay more for it compared to just buying a PS5 Pro, but you get definitely more value by paying a bit more for game PC. So, yeah, it's, would I buy it at this point? I'm not sure. As much as I would like to play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth at 4K 60, so, but yeah, it's not a value buy for sure.
Let's not forget they didn't. Did they announce any new games, or was
No.
it just the song? Yeah, so we're just gonna replay our old games, or what? Play Astrobot. So I don't know. See, I think the other theory was I think Concord was supposed to be the kind of like the poster child for PS5 Pro. Oh, sorry, I've been just listening to Concord news every day. It's just so funny. I think
Yeah,
Concord was supposed to be like the like with PS5 Pro. Because I mean, Concord looks nice. Well, I mean the cutscenes and everything, but
yeah, it's supposed to be in that show, right? That's coming out in like December. It was like Secret Level or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, like for them to even get an episode too. I mean, like, clearly they wanted it to be big, but
yeah. Yeah. Plus, like PS5. What are we? Is this like year 5 in its life cycle?
yeah,
Something
we're
like
we're
that.
about the midway.
Yeah. So I don't think. I mean, unless they have some big games coming up, or like GTA 6. So. Can't you imagine spending $700 for that? For just a small little upgrade.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, there's even news about whether GTA 6 will even per- look any better on the PS5 Pro, just because of the scale
Yeah.
and the tech that they're putting into that game. So I mean, would PS5 Pro make GTA 6 play any better than on that base PS5? Could be, but could be not. Hard to tell. I mean, I would not be surprised if it does not play any better compared to a PS5 or PS5 Pro. I mean, it was kind of like that um, for GTA 5. So, you had like you could play. I remember seeing GTA 5 on PlayStation 4, and it's not looking that great. I mean, yeah, I mean you could play it, but it didn't look as great as you'd imagine the system at the time to push out, and that's I'm sure that was because um, Rockstar just intentionally held back the settings for that game on the system just to make sure that it ran smoothly versus looking pretty. So it's in the hands of developers too, right? I mean, they can intentionally just hold back the graphical settings on the game, um, and then if they did that, that just puts the whole purpose of the PlayStation 5 Pro at a moot point, right? I mean, you bought a system that could technically perform more, um, but if the software, if the game software doesn't even tap into that hardware power, then it's $700 paperweight that you could have bought just using the base PS5 instead.
Watch, they're gonna come out with Red Dead Redemption 2 PS5 Pro Edition. All those remasters.
Maybe. I mean, wasn't there like a rumor earlier this week that it was going to be re-released on something or be added to something?
Dude, if they added like Bloodborne, which I think everybody wants, like a remaster or two, I think that would have hyped it up.
Yeah.
I think everybody wants Bloodborne.
Yeah, I still haven't tried that game yet. I mean, my first sort of Souls game was Elden Ring, but after playing that, I do want to go back into Bloodborne. But I mean, if there's a possibility that there's a remaster for it, then I might want to wait for that. But I don't know. It seems like everybody's losing hope on it.
I mean, maybe
Well, they spent all their money on Concord.
And this is how they can make it back.
Yeah, no, it would have been cool if they emphasized some sort of feature of the PS4 Pro that would like upscale, or not just upscale games, but actually, I mean, I know, what was it? I know Nvidia announced some sort of a tool or it's like a feature that would allow old games to be like through their AI technology to be visually remastered, using the GPU's power, and not like need to have a developer actually try to remaster with like new new visuals, new sprites, and so forth. The GPU itself could do that, for like older games. So I mean, if they had something like that, if they said, hey, you know what, you have the PS5 Pro that obviously can play your current games and future games at 4K 60, that's cool. But we can also take your older games that maybe don't look as good as today and really spruce up the visual to be more of a modern type of remake, right? So imagine you had like a PS1 game that suddenly, you were able to, the PS5 Pro was able to visually make it much better. Like, for example, you have all these mods for older games on the PC that you can play. A lot of these mods that are done by these independent developers, they build all these mods to really, give new life to these older games. And if the PS5 Pro was able to do that in some way, that I think would give definitely more value to the PS5 Pro. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll do that, and it will be an add-on.
That's true. That's true. PS, PlayStation Plus Plus or something like that.
All right. Well, on that note, I think that's a great spot to close out today's podcast. So, as always, like, share, subscribe. If this is on YouTube, drop a comment down below. Let us know what you think about the articles for this week. But until next time, bye.